Hey there, and welcome back to Planet Coaster 2. This is a brand new series in a brand new park called Bumbly Beach Adventure Park. And yes, that is a nod to Bumbly Beach from Roller Coaster Tycoon 1. We're going to kind of do our own thing here and make a water park as well as a go-kart / adventure park. But we'll get into that here in a moment. First, I just want to thank y'all so much for a great first week of Planet Coaster 2 content here on the channel. This channel is basically brand new. I started it up a couple months ago doing a couple videos in Planet Coaster 1, and then when Planet Coaster 2 came out, I uploaded 2 new videos, and they've just blown up from the algorithm, and you guys have been eating it up, so thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, as it does nothing but help me out, especially if you like these videos, because then it's just going to allow me to do more of these in the future. So once again, thank you so much. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Bumbly Beach Adventure Park. So off camera, as you can see, I went ahead and just built the overall footprint of the park around these roads. So the plan is, as of right now, we're going to have a water park over here to the left, and over to our right, we're going to have the adventure park. So the space is a little larger than I anticipated. I might make it a little smaller, but we do have a lot of space here to work with. As you can see, I'm going to pull up a blueprint here from the forums, and the one I'm picking here is a little small. However, you can see how much larger the footprint is than this blueprint. So I am considering making this space a little bit smaller, as this is more of a budget park than it is supposed to be a massive area. But we also might add a roller coaster or 2 here since we have the space. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But for now, let's go ahead and take a deep dive into what we have going here. As you can see, we have this lovely parking deck with just the lines on the top floor. If we click into this build, you can see there's 2,100 pieces. So I decided to opt into only putting them on the top, as I'm running an NVIDIA 1070. It's a champ for running this game, but I'm really worried about taxing it. So I thought it'd be wise to just go ahead and just leave it on the top and not fill the bottom. Now I will say, if you have a stronger PC and you want to download this from the workshop, feel free to copy and paste that down below to each level. But for now, I'm just going to leave that until I am able to get a better graphics card. But going back to the build, these are just resort pieces that I use. We've got balcony concrete pieces here for the sidewalls, and then we have concrete pillars. For the lines here, I was having some issues with the arch shapes, that it was bleeding through the floor. So I decided to try out the new signage in the game, and this is the Font 3D L lowercase, and I think it worked out pretty well. I didn't use any scaling, and I just used the advanced move to copy them throughout the garage. For the actual asphalt in the garage, I used this plaster floor with that color code you saw on the screen, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I modeled this directly after the Daytona Typhoon water park's parking garage, colors and everything, and same for the roads. I might actually make the roads a little bit darker, but for now I think it does the trick. But that's the parking garage, and here is going to be our entrance plaza. So the rest of the video will be a time lapse on that, but before we get to that, I want to show off, or not necessarily show off, I just want to show you what we have going on over here. So there is no beach map currently in Planet Coaster 2, so this is what we had to do. I'm going to limit showing this view because it's kind of ugly with that backdrop, but it's literally all I can do right now to make a beach in the game. I do want to take a second too to just admire how beautiful the water is in this game. I kind of rushed through making this beach because I was ready to get to build, but it still just looks so good. So props to you, Frontier. So all that we have left before the off-camera stuff is done is we're going to add lines to the roads eventually, and also add fence around the park eventually as well. So I'll probably do most of that off-camera at a different time, because I'm really excited to get into this build and show you this entrance. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into the time lapse. At my job, I tend to travel quite a bit for work, or at least I used to. I will not be anymore. But one of the last stops I did was in Miami Beach, Florida. So I visited South Beach during a little bit of free time I had there, and was incredibly inspired by the Art Deco architecture that is in that area. So you're going to see a lot of that pop up here momentarily with this entrance style. This park isn't necessarily meant to be in Miami, but just with that style, I've never actually taken a stab at making a park with it, as I didn't really have the resources to in Planet Coaster 1. It wasn't as easy, I should say, as it is in this game, but I'm really happy with how it ends up turning out. This fence, real quick, is just a workshop item. I'll link it in the description. I'm really happy with that. I'm not sure who made it, but they did a great job. So when I started this build, I was actually modeling this off of a lot of the budget parks based out of Florida, like Fun Spot Orlando. There's also a Fun Spot in Atlanta. I was kind of looking at pictures as well as the Daytona Lagoon Water Park. If you're familiar with any of these parks, that is definitely the vibe that we're going for when we're building this. It might be slightly more upscale just based on the sheer size of the landscape I'm dealing with here, and with this also being my first park in the game, I want to spend a little more time on details, just getting to know a lot of the scenery pieces. With that being said, you're going to see me making some decisions real-time in-game based on what I'm trying to go for, but I use these stucco pieces pretty much for the entire build, as well as these bricks. So I think they match the vibe that you get with buildings in Florida really well when you turn on them to one color, getting rid of those waves for the plaster. And bricks are just classic. You're going to see them in any theme park. But as I'm building this here, I'm really starting to consider and lean into Art Deco. But after I get that first layer done, I completely abandon the entrance for a second to work on what is going to be the admissions booth or ticket spots. So a lot of these quote-unquote budget parks will often have ticket booths where you can buy like wristbands for rides, you can buy day passes, or just tickets for individual rides themselves. So I want to make sure I included enough ticket spots there. And I will go ahead and add that this is not going to be the only entrance to the park. There's going to be a smaller entrance near the water park with a small parking lot. But this is going to be the adventure side of the park's admission area. So we're going to see mostly go-karts over here, a couple flat rides, and a wooden roller coaster, more than likely. Not totally sure yet, but that's kind of what I'm planning, not to spoil things for the future. Right here you can see me kind of messing with some different fencing. I ultimately lean on these bike fences and these stanchions, as I feel like they do add to the budget feel, and they don't feel permanent, so they can really close up at any point in time, just like you would see at one of these parks. So now we're adding the ticket sign, and I absolutely love the addition of these fonts into the game. We had fonts in Planet Coaster 1, but I felt like they were heavily themed, so they did a great job at having some generic fonts in here, and I'm sure they're going to add more themed elements in the future. So I had a lot of fun building this ticket booth that'll eventually connect to some more buildings in the back. And I also experimented with using the smallest grid height and size, and it allowed me to be really flexible with this build. The bricks don't have the exact arch pieces that mesh with the hanger pieces there, so I had to be really creative with how I connected it just to get rid of the gaps. So now we're back on our entrance, and this is really where I'm committing to the Art Deco style. I struggle here for a moment getting the right spacing for these columns. I kind of eventually figured it out after messing with it a little bit, and I'm really happy with how it turns out here in a moment. The height on this might be a little crazy given this is a budget park, but the inspiration was flowing and I couldn't stop it. I was directing this based on a building I actually saw in Miami on Ocean Drive. I definitely recommend, if you've never been to Miami, at least look at like Google Earth images of Ocean Drive. It's a really cool spot. There's a lot of crazy things happening on there for sure. Like, there's a lot of themed bars and such, but it's just very unique compared to most beach towns. So while this isn't based in Miami, it's based in Bumbly Beach. I definitely want to take a lot of that fun feeling that you get from South Beach and add it into this fun park. This part of the build is really where I feel this entrance starts to come alive. I start adding some of these cheeky details, but these pieces right here, these resort wall decorations, I discovered late into the build, and I feel like I've seen another creator or two use them for something, but I saw these pieces and it immediately screamed the design language I was going for and needing for this build. Ignore this logo. I might actually bring it back, not totally sure, but I add this logo in here and then continue adding more of these details. All of these rounded pieces really help this building come to life. I didn't feel like it was too boxy before, like I had the columns kind of going up at an angle, but now that we have where the logo's sitting, now that it's deleted, now that we have that and these new pieces I'm adding, it has this nice flow to it that I feel like really pulls your eye, and I'm a big fan with how it turned out. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of these pieces in the future. So now you're going to see me struggle here for a little bit, trying to figure out what to put in this white space up here, and it ends up just being blank for the time being. I add some lights up top, and I'm probably going to add more to the build in the future, but I don't have a logo in game yet, and I think I've decided that I'm going to put one in front and not on the building. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I am really torn between the two. I don't feel like I could go wrong with either option, and maybe I do both. Who knows? Maybe I do some kind of different variation or put an entrance sign, but we'll have to see. So yeah, definitely let me know in the comments below. So now you're about to witness me kind of mess around with this path tool, and re-watching this earlier when I was editing this footage, I realized the mistake I made was I had that entrance spawn point, or not spawn point, but the entrance point there in the middle, and that's why I couldn't delete the path. It's really obvious while watching it, but that's what I get for playing this game late at night, is my brain is kind of out the window a little bit. So I delete this path a bunch, and I think I'm going to go through and fix this later, but I ultimately just add planters here. It's just over the paths. It totally works, but you're going to have guess collision points at that point, and it's going to be, you know, a little weird when it's a pretty easy fix. So I think I'll go through and fix that later, but I'm really happy with the way this turns out here. You're totally going to see me add plants and then undo all of them because I realized I wasn't adding them to a build. A really nice trick you're going to see me do here in a moment is the concrete pieces we actually use to build the parking garage. I have as a favorite. It's one of my few favorite items in the game. That way you can put it underground, and everything you attach to it will now become a part of this building. So it's super useful when you're placing down path items or things like foliage where you don't necessarily want it to be attached to the building, but you want it to be separate for your own organization. That's at least how I operate, how my brain functions. I want them to be two different entities. It just helps me stay organized personally. Next thing you're going to see me here, the reason I'm keeping this in the build is because I actually might bring it back, but I end up deleting this fence, this wall. But I think it would be great if I put a little more time and detail into this. Most of the smaller scale parks that I am referencing right now have these kind of walls right outside the entrance, and it's not necessarily a facade or anything connected to anything. It's just a fence there acting as a border. It's literally, it's not supposed to be pretty, but oftentimes you can also see advertisements, and I think that's what I'm going to end up doing, is throwing on various advertisements for vendors and also just theming elements. You know, I'm going to put some tiki elements from the resort pack in there just to create more thematic flair on the outside and give more, just frankly, character to the build on the outside. You'll often see dramatic theming on the outside of these more budget parks to make people feel like they're really walking into a super fun theme park, and that's right now I think that's what we're lacking on the outside. So definitely considering adding that back in and going crazy with the theming. Right here I'm just editing the spawn point. Didn't realize that it threw off the nodes. I wish I could get rid of those gates because I don't really want to have the bus in there because it's a parking garage, but having the spawn point there made the most sense. Now we're going to go ahead and get started on park facilities, starting with restrooms. So eventually we're going to have a whole section here right when you walk into the entrance plaza. You're going to have a gift shop, you're going to have guest services, all that kind of stuff that you're going to see in a typical park right before we jump straight into the attractions. Now these restrooms are just carrying on the exact same facade that the admission booth had, and that's on purpose, but the rest of them are going to have a slightly different feel. They'll be very similar in probably materials and colors, but I'm going to change the shapes up a little bit, add some theming to them a little bit here just to give a little more character. You know, I want you to walk into this park feeling like you're going to have a good time, like a fun time. So adding colors and goofy theming is definitely going to be a must. So we're going to be getting that into the next episode, but for now we're going to continue trucking along with some small details to this bathroom. So as you can tell, I absolutely love these arch pieces. I'm definitely planning on using them quite a bit in this build. I think they really complement the style of architecture, and they look fun. Let's just be honest, they look fun. And speaking of fun, let's look at doors. Real fake doors here. This is the one I ended up settling on, the seaport kind of feel. After all, there is going to be a water park attached to this park, so I do want to have a little bit of that resort/aquatic theme sprinkled throughout just to remind you where you're at, that you're in a beachy feeling area. So more of that to come for sure. Lastly, we're just finishing off some trim here to the building, which does a great job at adding color interest to the top there. So yeah, that's pretty much all we have left in the episode. We're just adding a couple small details to wrap this up, adding these portholes here to once again continue that aquatic theme throughout this build. But that's really about it. There's really not much more going on. I'm really excited about the future of this park and this channel, which we're going to jump in and talk about here in a moment. But before we do that, let's jump in game and just get a brief look at what we've accomplished today. Alright, and that does it for today's episode. We got the park plaza mostly done here. Got some small details to do off camera, but I'm really happy with this build, and I hope you enjoyed it so far. Now this park is going to be really a mini series. I'm hoping to be able to wrap it up in a couple months, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far. There's a lot more to come. Definitely hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Most of my viewers, being a new channel, are not subscribed. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, like it, and share it with your friends if you're really enjoying it. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to getting some more episodes out here. We have holidays coming up, so scheduled release might be weird. But coming into the new year, I'm really hoping to get a more consistent schedule. So with that, hope you have a great day, night, or evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.